Kindly ask everyone to please be seated. We welcome those of you who are here physically and those of you who are joining us online for the funeral of Abe H Rosenblum. Rabbi Ari Hart, Rabbi Samuel Biber will be officiating this afternoon. Again, just as a last and gentle reminder, please be sure your phones are on.
Today, an incredibly difficult day. Nothing in the fact that we all cognitively knew that this day would come, that it was inevitable. Nothing about that makes today easier. It's a day where we give our kavod, our honor, we remember, and we say goodbye to a remarkable human being, Abe Rosenblum, Avram Yeshua Heschel, born in Nehrovo, Ukraine, to Shmuel and Chaya Sarah, 99 years ago. It's uplifting to see so many of us here today. I'm sure so many watching, gathering, trying to do the impossible, to show Abe the respect and love that he deserved. We say goodbye to Abe, the survivor, a survivor, all of his siblings except one murdered by the Nazis, a survivor who experienced unimaginable physical, emotional trauma, who survived and thrived. We say goodbye to Abe, the family man, and looking at this beautiful family, married just shy of 70 years to his beloved Florence, whom he loved so dearly, and Florence, whom you loved so dearly and cared for and protected and gave him such a beautiful life. The proud father of Sherry, Judy, Andrea, and Susan, proud father-in-law of Gary, Harry, and Larry, proud grandfather of Evan, Stuart, Stacy, Michelle, Lisa, Elliot, Yvette, Stephanie, and Benjamin, and proud great-grandfather. Also need to mention the loving care he received and the loving care he gave to Mark and to Flora. He loved you both so much, and you loved him and cared for him like family. We say goodbye to Abe, the leader. Abe, who from nothing, mamish nothing, built a business empire, and who built this shul. Founding member of Skokie Valley, president of Skokie Valley, and so much more, so many years of dedication to the Jewish community of Skokie and to Skokie Valley. We say goodbye to Abe, our friend, our beloved friend of so many of us. I will now recite some Tehillim, followed by a few more brief remarks, and then we'll transition to Rabbi Biber, Abe's dear friend and dear rabbi for many decades, to guide us through the proceedings today. Begin with Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai rori lo echsar, Binodesha yarbitzeni al me menuchot yinahaleni, Nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo, Gam ki elech b'geitz ha'mavet lo irara ki ata imadi, Shivtecha mishantecha hema yenachamuni, Taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorerai dishanta b'shem roshi kosi revaya, Ach tov v'chesed yudifuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai la'orech yamim. Song of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God makes me lie down in lush pastures. God leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in righteous paths for God's name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, a valley Abe knew well, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You've anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. We just celebrated Shavuot, a holiday of deep significance to Abe. Shavuot is the holiday where he would say Kaddish for the members of his family, for whom he did not know the dates of their murder. He did not know their yard sites. So every Shavuos here in this shul, he would speak about them and remember them and say Kaddish for them. And Shavuot is a holiday about the chain of the Jewish people, represented through Torah and the transmission of Torah. Moshe received Torah from Har Sinai and then gives it to Yoshua, and Yoshua to the elders, and the elders to the prophets, etc., a chain of tradition going all the way to today. And we are all links in that chain. But there are some links in that chain that are tested more than other links. There are some links that hold more weight than other links. There are some links that require unimaginable strength and commitment and sacrifice to ensure the transmission of Torah, to ensure the transmission of our people to the next generation. Abe was an iron link in the chain that is the Jewish people. An iron link through time and through worlds. He was an iron link who saw his family decimated by the Nazis and then built a vibrant and flourishing family. An iron link of unimaginable strength and will to live that carried him through so many challenges, fighting back from the brink of death again and again and again to live another day for the memories of those he carried with him. He was an iron link in this community, in the legacy of Skokie Valley, linking it to its future. And on behalf of this shul, I just have to express what he meant for this shul. As a Baal Koreh, a reader of the Torah, as a survivor, a voice of conscience for our community. As a davener, as a laner, his nusach, his melodies, transporting our community to worlds and times that have disappeared. As a board member, a leader, a giver, a voice of moral conscience, a voice of memory, and just his voice. Yesterday on Shavuos, many of us remarked that we could hear his voice laning. So unique, so powerful. And as the rabbi of this shul, I have to try to express what he meant to me personally. I tried my best to be Abe's rabbi. He was always so gracious and so kind. There are so many stories I could tell right now. I could go on for hours in just the 4 short years that I knew him. I remember going to his home on Purim with Stephen Lubavitch. We were going to read him the Megillah because he was home and we thought we'd do him a favor. And we got to his house and he said, "Can I see that Megillah?" So we handed him the Megillah and he proceeded to read us the Megillah. He was 97 years old. No practice, no preparation, just read it cold. That was Abe. That was Abe. I tried my best to be his rabbi, but really Abe was my Rebbe. He was my teacher. He taught me so much about community, about perseverance, about love of Torah, about life, about love of Am Yisrael and Medinat Yisrael. And there are just no words to express what it meant to me to receive his blessings. No words to express what it meant to be in his presence, to receive his wisdom, his support, and his love. Abe, we are so grateful for everything you brought to the world, to our community, to our hearts. We will profoundly miss you. We will always remember you with the deepest respect and love. Yeh zichro baruch. May his memory always be for a blessing for all of us. I want to invite Rabbi Barber to guide us through the proceedings today.
I echo the words of Rabbi Hart. It was just so special. A part and parcel of my life for oh so many years, which I will talk about a little bit later. Right now we have the honor of hearing the family speak and giving their words of remembrance, of love, of what they felt about their father, their grandfather. And the order is as follows. Gary Smith's son-in-law, Sherry, a daughter, Judy Fetterman, a daughter, Andrea, a daughter, Susan, a daughter, Mark, his caregiver, Ben, Lisa, Stacy, and Yvette grandchildren. So, Gary, please.
Can one word define a person? Can there be one trait that is so overwhelming that it essentially defines the person himself? That's a seemingly impossible challenge. But my father-in-law never seemed to find a challenge too large for him in his life. And so therefore, I decided to accept this challenge of defining him in a word. And that word is strength. In all my life, I have never met a stronger person, never known a stronger personality, never observed a stronger dedication to one's faith. And I have never seen, and I believe the world will never again see, a love so strong for a wife he held so dear, or a family so intensely. My father-in-law, my dad, was seemingly a force of nature. It is impossible to have met him and not be captivated by him. His personality was so strong and so engaging that all that met him fell under his charms and considered him their friend and their inspiration. The strength with which he was loved, admired, and respected by those that knew him well and by those that only knew him briefly was legendary. My dad was born in Nehrovo, Ukraine, to a culture lost and a time far different than today. He attended a yeshiva in Mukachevo, and he lived over 30 miles away from his home, and he stayed in Mukachevo, and it was there that he learned enough that he could have been ordained as a rabbi. He could speak 7 languages. He survived the horrors of the Holocaust, and he held witness to them ever after, to the slaughter of the remainder of his family in Europe. But you don't have to know these facts to know that the lessons of his youth burned in him bright all the time. He held within him an enormous strength he gained from the memories of his family gone. Dad was a survivor, but that word does not do justice to the strength he gained from his adversities. Dad was a thriver, not merely a survivor. His dedication to his faith was extraordinary. To say that his faith was tested is like saying that Job had a little disturbance. Like Jacob, who wrestled with the angels and won, so too did Dad wrestle with his faith. And he came back even stronger to his dedication to God and to his Judaism. I'm going to tell you guys right now, the members of the congregation, I am certain of this, but I think you'll learn it soon. There will never be a high holiday quite so sweet again in Skokie Valley as there was when I was here. Never quite the same without his booming voice laning the Torah. And I got to tell you, inspirationally, 2 years ago, I think it was, when he could barely walk to the bema in the middle of the sanctuary, he laned the Torah and he read the book of Jonah for the heavens to hear. It was remarkable. I didn't think he'd be able to get there. Mark had to carry him there, it seemed, and he stood for the entire time and read that book of Jonah like it had never been read before. He discusses scriptures all his life. And even when it was really too hard for him to even hold the conversation, he was discussing the Parsha, that week's Parsha, with Rabbi Hart the week before he died. Couldn't hold the conversation because he was talking about the Parsha. That was my grandfather. No, my father-in-law. He was saying grandfather, sorry. I am my kids, that's all I can say. Everyone of Sherry's and my friends that met my dad loved him and admired him for his strength of character. And I can tell you that my kids, at least, were so inspired by him, and they dedicate much of their moral compass to him. Their respect for him is as strong as any grandchild can have for their Zadie. He loved his 4 daughters with all his heart, and in the end, he never failed to tell them how strong his love was for him whenever he saw them. He would say that their visits gave him strength, and from their visits, he carried the strength to continue on. I'm happy that he often told me that I was not his son-in-law, I was his son. And the strength of love he held for his caregivers, Mark and Amor, oh my gosh, that was wonderful to witness. It was wonderful to witness. But the strongest love I have ever witnessed was the love that my dad held for my mom. Dad was chronologically 99 years old, but to him, he was a man of 70. Because, as Mom will tell you, and ask her, she'll tell you, I promise you, he often said his life never began until he met her. They were married for 70 years, of the happiest marriage I've ever seen. So, Psalm 90 tells us that Dad was a man of great strength because he lived far beyond the 70 years. But Dad's life with Mom gave him extra strength because he literally lived a lifespan with my mom, 70 years, as the Bible gives. His life with Mom also was doubly blessed. Blessed for the love that they had for each other, and blessed for the strength and belief in goodness of life that she provided him. So can a word define a man? When that man is Abe Rosenblum, and the word is strength, I say yes. May Dad's blessing be a memory to all that knew him.
Shed tears that he is gone,
or you can smile because he has lived,
you can close your eyes and pray that he'll come back,
or you can open your eyes and see all he's left.
Your heart can be empty because you can't see him.
Or you can be full of love you shared.
You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday.
Or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday.
You can remember him only that he is gone.
Or you can cherish his memory and let it live on.
You can cry and close your mind.
Be empty and turn your back.
Or you can do what he'd want.
Smile, open your eyes, love, and go on. Dad will miss you. Love you.
Dad and I had a very close relationship. I'll never forget the first time I brought Harry home to meet my parents. Harry stayed for a Friday night dinner, and then at 10:30, we decided to watch Midnight Cowboy. My parents normally went to bed around 10:30, after they watched the news and stuff. And my mom went up. My dad stayed up the whole night the movie was on. And when it ended, he said, "Time for you to leave now." As everyone knows, our family was blessed with 4 girls. So when I gave birth to my dad's first grandkids, who happened to be twin boys, my father was ecstatic. He was so excited that one Friday on his way home from work, my father stopped by to see the boys, and they were just infants. And let's face it, this is not something typical my father would do. I was going to take the boys with me for a quick trip to the grocery store, but he volunteered to actually babysit for them all by himself. Somehow, they all survived that. When I was about 13, Dad dragged us all to Arkansas for a fishing trip, which probably isn't the best idea for 4 daughters. Needless to say, when Dad was thrilled when he could take the boys, who were willing participants, with him on fishing trips. They even ended up pictured on the front cover of a local fishing magazine, and Dad couldn't wait to share this experience with everyone. When Stuart and Evan were 13 years old, my parents took the boys to Israel, where they were bar mitzvahed again on Masada. This trip meant a lot to both my parents and my boys. Dad lived for his family and was especially proud of all of his grandchildren. He tried to spend time with them and developed a special relationship with all of them. When Stacy was younger, she was prone to ear infections. So during the winter, when my parents were wintering in Arizona, Stacy would fly out to be with them. But since she was so young at the time, her Aunt Sherry would go with her to Arizona. So Stacy got to spend time with them while enjoying the warmer weather. My parents loved having her visit and really got to build a lasting relationship with them. After my father retired from the vending business, he used to come to our office and help change batteries and watches, all for the price of a large coffee. This was definitely the way to keep him out of my mother's hair while keeping him busy. This skill made him popular with his friends. When the batteries in their watches stopped working, he would fix them. Dad was a religious man, and his faith was very strong, even after all that he had to go through. This synagogue meant a lot to him. Once COVID started and he was not able to come to shul, it took a lot out of him that he could not attend services. Every Shabbos, no matter how he was feeling, he would always take my call to wish him a good Shabbos. I've always thought of my father as a strong-willed person with a great will to live. He was so proud of all his children and grandchildren and thrilled to welcome his 4 new great-grandsons into the family. Dad, you'll always be in our hearts. We love you.
Hello, I am Andrea, daughter number 3. I want to thank Rabbis Biber and Hart for having such a great relationship with my dad. I remember when I was young, people would comment about my dad's accent. That always puzzled me. I could never hear an accent. And then, as a young girl, I found it on the envelope containing my birth certificate, the word Czechoslovakia, handwritten. I had no idea what that meant, let alone that it was a place. Dad kept his past a secret until the Nazis were going to march in Skokie. At that time, I sat with him and listened to his story of his past. As the years passed, he became more vocal about his previous life and what is now part of Ukraine. He strived to have a better life for himself, my mom, and his 4 daughters. He worked hard and was very successful running both public vending and concession services. When we were young, he would stop at the tollway oasis on the way home from a trip to check on the vending machines. Inevitably, there would be at least one that was broken. He would make us wait while he fixed them. I would anxiously wait by his side so that I could get a cup of hot chocolate from the repaired machine. There were always cases of pop, boxes of candy bars, and later huge bags of popcorn in our house. I believe it was in 1965 when we moved into my dad's dream house. It meant so much to him to successfully buy a house that he designed. He also found a lot that was walking distance to this synagogue, which meant so much to him. This house seemed to represent his home, something that he was robbed of in his childhood. When my parents sold the house, Dad was depressed and had trouble mentioning the house. Education was another priority for my dad. He was proud to be able to send all his daughters to college. At one point, he was paying for tuition for 3 of us at the same time. Judaism was a core value. I appreciated his knowledge of traditions and customs. My dad was a Jewish book of why. My mom and dad were so lucky to have almost 70 years of marriage together. Goodbye, Dad, and thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm the baby of the family, and I'm crying like one, so please bear with me. My father was my role model. I looked up to him with great respect. He demanded it and earned it. I really just want to talk about how much my father meant to me. He would come to my rescue whenever I needed his help. I can't tell you how many times he was there for me, because it has been up until the time that he was physically unable to anymore. He would write little notes and send them to me. Each one would tell me that he loves me and how much his hands were shaking, which made it difficult for him to write. I saved each and every one of them, and I treasure them all. He would sign them, "Love, Mom and Dad," but they are in his handwriting. As his health began to deteriorate, his notes became more and more difficult for him to write. But he still managed to do it. That was the kind of strength that he had to get through everything. I already miss him so much. He helped make my life so much better. And for that, I will be eternally grateful. My mother has been there right by my father's side through thick and thin. And now it is time for her to carry on with my father's spirit and strength still right there by her side. God bless them both. Amen.
Good afternoon. So, I was debating last night if you're going to speak or not, to be honest. But there's interesting happened this morning. I stayed with Florence all night, and when I get up at 5:50, I went to the kitchen, and there's a yellow pan there empty. So I think he's saying, Mark, you have to do it for me. So this is for you, Abe. So I keep calling him, Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. And you know what he's gonna answer me? Marcola, Marcola, Marcola. We are all here gathered together because Abe wants us to gather. He likes the crowd, you know, especially if he read in the high holidays and everything. So we respect him very much. He's a special person, touches our hearts individually. I'm sure you agree with me. So today, he's surrounded with people who cares him, especially his family, his love of his life, which is Florence, and the four daughters. They're great. They always call them. I witnessed everything because I was there for them for 4 years. I came in the shul even before Rabbi Hart was here. So I witnessed how this shul grows. It's like we were discussing here before, like it's like, oh, maybe it's gonna go down. But later, when Rabbi Hart came, it raised up. A lot of people came. A lot of people joined. Right, Rabbi? So for the past 4 years, I've been Abe's companion. I learned a lot and witnessed a lot from him. I witnessed and know how much this shul meant a lot to him, to be honest. Lead with Rabbi, as I said, and also Bible is special to him. I saw first Bible in Mariano's. So he's told me everything about your Rabbi Bible too. So I'll be like behind the scene of Abe, you know. So bear with me. So anyway, to all the congregation who was here, the members, to the past and the present president, and also the chairman, for the Sunday Manion, he likes to come and join. Of course, for the late, you know, the men's club, I think is already gone. But he liked this group. Yeah, we have a breakfast every Sunday, led by Sherwin, and Ben Katz, Ron, Dan, Sam, Marvin, and some other folks. So we're all eating omelette except for him because he wanted to join Florence and waited. That time, Florence still the one who makes the omelette for us. But later on, he teach me the recipe. So I witnessed how he liked to lay in the Torah, as I said, especially in the high holidays. It's really cute, you know, because before there's a big holiday or Shabbat reading, 2 days or a day before that, he asked me for a book. And it has a hardcover. I cannot read it because it's a Hebrew or something. But what's inside it is a context like the one in the Torah. So I revealed Abe's secret, how he laid very smoothly. Sorry, Abe. But I have to say. And then I learned a lot in the Jewish tradition. It helped me grow also and to become more religious. So I read Torah on the Saturday and I have a Bible on Sundays, which is good. 2 is better than 1. So Abe was always a teacher, a mentor to any one of us. Even in his last years when I was with him, I learned a lot, even though he didn't know that, he noticed. Especially the love of your family, the love of the community, the people that surrounds you, and you have to respect any kind of religion so that there will be respect back. Thank you, Abe. thank you very much, and we all love you, me and more, always here for you. So, thank you guys.
Avraham in the Bible is the father of all, the father of our people, who received a berit bein habitarim, pieces of the covenant, so that we would all receive God. Avraham was himself a Shekhinah, the vessel by which God entered the world. I stand before you all today to commemorate the life of our own Avraham. My Zadie was named after the biblical father of all of us. None of us would be here. Many of us, myself included, would not even exist were it not for him. When I think of my Zadie, what I think of first is how he came to be where he was, how he truly began his life. The foundation of his character was his iron will, his indomitable spirit, sinewy heart, and steadfast mind. No one here could possibly comprehend the pain and suffering which he endured, but not once did he ever give up. He transcended the limits of the human body and was miraculously delivered from unspeakable horrors. Welcomed into a new homeland, hardships did not abate until he restored and created anew what had been taken from him, his family. What I think of most when I think of my Zadie is love. His unconditional love for me was the greatest I have ever known and will ever know. To me, this manifested in innumerable ways. Were it not for him, I would not have had the traditional Jewish upbringing, for which I am immensely grateful. Without him, I would not have become a bar mitzvah, the greatest day of my life hitherto. Without him, I would not have my mother. Were it not for him, I would not have lived. He was my savior. I do not say this lightly. Zadie himself was a father figure to all who knew him, and the quintessential Zadie, paragon of boundless wisdom, whose very being commanded reverence and adulation. In his enterprise, he constantly sought perfection in every way, as Bobby described him mere weeks ago, going above and beyond in every dimension. That was how I always knew him. The Zadie I knew was at once a great sage and a great big teddy bear. He has bequeathed gigantic, immeasurable footsteps. These can never be wholly filled. His life can never be replicated. What these craterous formations have given us is inspiration. I constantly strive to follow in them, even if only on a minuscule scale, to be unyielding, righteous, and mighty. For he who strove with the world became great by overcoming himself, but he who strove with God, he became the greatest of them all. Histaklin v'raita uvara alma.
Zadie's ethical will, it says that he doesn't want us to cry over him, but never really been great at following directions. Hello, my name is Lisa Crane, and to me, Abe was also Zadie. I didn't actually know that his real name wasn't Zadie until I tried to address a thank you note to him, and my mother had to correct me. That goes for you too, Bubby. I didn't know, I'm sorry. I was fairly young when that happened, but definitely old enough to know better. Even now, as an adult, it feels strange to refer to him by his first name. Zadie relished his role as a grandparent. Every visit would warrant a bone-crushing hug, a slobbery kiss, and this unique, squinty smile that I only ever saw him use with us grandkids and babies. He would say, "I love you," over and over again to us, as if he was trying to convince us of how incredibly important we were to him. At the end of his life, when he was too weak to speak much, we knew that he recognized me and my sister because he gave us that same goofy, squinty smile. To some extent, I am who I am because of Zadie. He instilled a respect for Judaism and its traditions into us from an early age. Some of my earliest memories of Zadie are from sweltering through seemingly endless Passover Seders. He insisted on going through the entire 1920s era Haggadah, even if that meant the Seder would go until 11 and the young grandkids would fall asleep at the table. He was traditional in other ways as well. He took great issue with my efforts to fix things around their home. He would always tell me not to bother and that my dad or Stuart or Evan would take care of it. Obviously, since I've inherited his stubbornness, that just made me want to fix things even more. I'm not saying that I became an engineer entirely out of spite for Zadie's traditional attitudes, but he was definitely a factor. He wanted me and all of his grandkids to be successful, so perhaps that was all means to an end. Since Zadie was always Zadie to me, his life as Abe outside of our family feels almost like a separate existence. It fills my heart to know that he was loved as Abe as well as he was as Zadie, and that everyone here is proof of that. And thank you all for coming and honoring his legacy, and may his memory be a blessing for each of you. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you for giving the support to my family during this time of mourning. My grandfather, who's an icon in this synagogue, passed away peacefully Sunday afternoon. I wanted to thank both rabbis for the support and strength that you guys have given him over the last couple of years. As the oldest grandchild, I wanted to live up to the ideals that Zadie set up for me. My father and his values helped shape me into the man that I am today. I couldn't thank them any more than living the great life that I live. This even led me to purchase a Cadillac as my first car as a professional. This suit that I'm wearing today was the same suit that I wore at my wedding, the happiest day of my life. Married to Rachel in 2019. In his ethical will, as Lisa mentioned, that we should not cry for him, that he lived a good life thanks to his great wife and companion. She made my life meaningful, and my children, who I love so much, helped me enjoy my years. So with this in mind, I decided that this really is a celebration of his life. It's, not him passing, but it really is a celebration, and so that's why I chose to wear this suit today. I know that he was very proud of all his grandchildren, and I'm sure the congregation has heard many stories of all of us growing up. I was lucky enough to be able to travel with him to Israel, go fishing with him, and able to be his partner on the golf course. I remember fondly the times that I went to visit Bubby and Zadie in Arizona, and I was lucky enough to be able to spend 6 straight weeks with them while I was finishing up school. There was 2 things that Zadie told me every time that I saw him over the last couple of years. The first one was, take care of Bubby. And the second one was, always remember me. And so we know that a man like my grandfather will never be forgotten. He will be missed. I love him, and he'll always be with me. Thank you.
Shorter people. I'm Stacy, and I'm the oldest granddaughter. when I realized that I needed to put my thoughts down into words, I really struggled with what I wanted to say. I know that, and obviously as speaker number 89, that everyone here probably knows the basics. Zadie was a Holocaust survivor, a successful businessman, a family man, and a pillar of the synagogue in which we're in today. By the way, who doesn't have one of these gems, Abe Rosenblum for president? Because if he needs one, Bubby's got more at the house. But, joking aside, all of this and his life implies that he was a really serious man. And while he definitely could be serious, it's really not the Zadie that I felt that I knew. The other day, my husband and I shared some of our favorite Zadie memories with each other. And Daniel told me that one thing that really stood out to him was Zadie's instant warmth and how he welcomed him into the family without any hesitation and was never afraid to tell him that he loved him. Zadie always put others first, as we know. So on one of my trips to Arizona, Zadie was sick. Since we thought he had pneumonia, Bubby and I forced him to go to the hospital. The ER had Zadie put a mask on, and this was pre-COVID, so masking up was really not an everyday thing. What I really remember from that trip and that visit to the hospital was that Zadie was playing peekaboo with Bubby and with his mask and just making silly faces at us and really wanting to entertain us while the medical team did his workup. And even though he was so sick, he was just smiling and laughing and really trying to make not only the caretakers, but us smile and laugh for him. And so, as mentioned, while many of you have probably seen the more serious side of him, Zadie really embraced his goofy side, and he was always willing to make that silly smile and silly faces for the camera. My camera roll and my photo albums are just full of silly Zadie pictures. Wearing hats, wearing masks, whatever he could do for a smile. Another story that I just want to share with you that really brings a smile to my face was my wedding. Zadie decided that he would sing the Sheva Brachot during the ceremony. Our rabbi kept asking us, my husband and I, to schedule a call or a meeting with him to provide the brachot, asking what he needed and how he could help. I kept telling Rabbi that Zadie was good. He really didn't need any help. Day of the wedding, Rabbi brought a printout and said, "Where is he? I want to meet him. I want to make sure he has what he needs." And I said, "I promise, he's ready. He's good to go." While Zadie's body wasn't always cooperative, his voice, as we all mentioned, was always strong and clear. And something that I think everyone in this room has heard from his laning. After the ceremony of my wedding, the rabbi came up to me in tears. He couldn't believe how beautiful Zadie's reading and singing of the Sheva Brachot was. He was so moved by Zadie. And even 5 years later, every single time I see my rabbi, he asks about Zadie. Zadie really touched a lot of people in his 99 years with us. He always said not to forget him, and I truly believe that he holds a special place in the hearts of all of us in this room, and no one would ever be able to forget him. Thank you.
Sorry. A couple of months ago, when my Zadie was in the hospital, everything was moving so fast and so slow at the same time. Emotions were running high, and none of us could believe that this was really happening. But in that moment, I decided to take a step back, and I started to think about how amazing of a man my Zadie is. And I realized it was almost unbelievable how incredible he is. It was so hard to fathom that I felt like I needed this documentation, this proof, because otherwise I might not have believed it myself. So I decided to write this little note in my phone.
I use this to serve as a reminder of how great he really is, and I would like to share that note with you all today. I hope that you can remember him in a similar way. The man that taught me everything. It's so hard to put into words the type of person my Zadie is. He's so much more than his story. He's a survivor, but he's more than that. He's a father, a husband, a grandfather, a great-grandfather, but again, he's so much more than that. My Zadie is one of the greats. He's the type of person that you would describe as larger than life itself. At 95 years old, my Zadie was standing in front of the entire shul, chanting Torah so loud that people outside of the sanctuary could hear him. People legitimately thought it was a 30-year-old chanting. My Zadie is more than just an incredible man. He is respected, loved, and cherished by every single person that met him. Constantly, my mom would say, "Zadie made a new friend today." He had this effect on every single person he met. They all knew it. They all could see how incredible of a man he is. Don't get me wrong, though. My Zadie is also the most stubborn man to walk this planet. He's a fighter, and man, did he put up a good fight. You knew what he wanted, and you knew if he did not like something. But that almost made you respect him more. Almost. My Zadie is my moral compass. He taught me everything. He taught me about my Judaism, my morals, my values, my everything. He taught me what it means to advocate for others. He taught me about the importance of education. He taught me why we fight for justice, how to create a more equitable world, and how to show love and compassion to every single human. This man, who's gone through some of the most horrific events in our world's history, taught me about love. He taught me what it means to be a part of a community and why we as Jews have to keep fighting. He did more than just teach me. He taught my classmates, my friends, my family, strangers. He taught generations, and he did this for us so that it would never happen again. And now, I ask of you one thing. Please keep teaching his story. Let us not forget, and let us continue to teach everyone you meet about compassion and love. Share his story with the world. Do not let this be forgotten. May his memory be a blessing, and may his story live on forever. I love you, Zadie. Love, Yvette, the one and only.
As was mentioned earlier, we're here to remember Abe, but it's also truly a celebration of his wonderful and beautiful life. Avram Yehoshua Heschel and Shmuel v'Chaya Sarah. I really never could call him Abe, very rarely, maybe when I spoke to others. But when I addressed Abe, it was Reb Avraham, all the time, Reb Avramaleh. I just felt that sense of kavod, of respect, that was due to such a special human being. And I'm not here today because at one time I had the privilege of being the rabbi here in the shul and being his rav for so many years, and not that at one time, probably going back a few months ago, I taught both Andrea and Susan in Hebrew school here at Skokie Valley Synagogue, or had the honor of officiating at Judy and Harry's wedding. But I stand here today because I personally have lost a dear friend, an almost father-like figure to me. As an individual, I consider Reb Avram to be a true hero. The great Talmudic sage Hillel in a dispute that he had with Shammai and Rabbi Akiva, discussed survivors. Rabbi Avram is among those that were natural survivors. They may have been in the very jaws of defeat. Escape may have seemed impossible. Death may have seemed inevitable, but they refused to abandon hope and to renounce the struggle. They devised means of escape. They searched for a life-sustaining environment. They never say die. Rabbi Avram, I believe, was such a person. He's a classical survivor. His story is proof that optimism is never foolish, that the struggle can be crowned with victory. A person such as Rabbi Avram was a true hero because he was able to survive the hell and horrible fury of the Shoah, of the Holocaust, and remain a loyal and faithful Jew. He came to America, met his lovely Ashes Chaya, Florence, and together they built what Hitler and the Nazis, Yamach Shemam v'Zichram, tried to annihilate. To me, that's what defines a hero. He was a tremendous balt filler, davening for so many years as the Chazan for Shachris on Rosh Hashanah. I remember when I was with the Hebrew school here and running the junior congregation, I would just come up to listen to him. Such a beautiful, melodious voice, and bringing the nigunim, the tunes of Europe, back to America. What made it so beautiful? His boundless energy, his strength as a Balkore, read anything, anytime you asked him to, even if it was 2 minutes beforehand. But I think the most important thing about Avram, he was a great guy. That's how I look to him. Our relationship began when I started here as the junior congregation director way back when. I'm not going to say the year there. And we hit it off from the very start. Always, and then when I became rabbi here, I always would seek him out for sound advice. And he always would be able to find me to give me advice, even if I didn't ask for it. I remember we started breakfast with the rabbi on a Sunday mornings after davening. And here I was saying, what am I going to talk about? I have to find the topic week after week after week. After all, Sunday happens every week, right? What was I going to say? What were we going to talk about? And then after we sat down, we made hamotzi and started eating. Rabbi Avram would go, Rabbi, I have a question. And I knew I never had to worry ever about what it was I was going to talk about that week. The Monday night Gemara class, probably the longest running Gemara class in the city of Chicago. It ran for 40 years. It started with Rabbi Jack Schnell, Shalom, who was the educational director here in the shul. And then when Rabbi Shalom was no longer able to run the class, I took over for the last 7 years. Why did I take over? Because Rabbi Avram came to me and said, Rabbi, you're the next person who's going to teach you. How could you say no to Rabbi Avram? And it was a tremendous, Rabbi Avram was unbelievable. He would be able to quote Gemaras from all of Shas. He would have these beautiful questions from the commentators that the commentators themselves had asked. And he would ask these questions. That was so special. And to be able to sit and talk Torah with him, to talk Yiddishkeit with him, to talk about the world's problems with him, because Abe was going to solve it all, Rabbi Avram was going to solve it all. This always fascinated me. We always didn't agree, but we would agree to disagree. On Shabbos morning at Kiddush, as I made my way around being able to say good Shabbos to everyone, I always made sure to save where Abe and Florence were sitting for last. Why? Because if I went to them first, I would never get to anyone else. He always had a comment on the drasha that I gave that Shabbos, and would always have suggestions for future drashot. To my dear Florence, you've lost your lifelong partner. You were with him every step of the way, in good times and in bad times. It was rare to see the two of you not together. The beauty of your marriage, the beauty of your life is something that I always look to as an example of how I should treat my wife, how I should have my relationship with her, my respect and covet for her. Because that's what Reb Avram showed to you every single moment of his life, when times were tough and when times were good. Sherry, Judy, Andrea, Susan, and the whole family. You've suffered a loss that cannot be replaced. Your father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and most important of all, the patriarch of your family has departed for the Olam HaEmes, the true world. And I'm sure you all realize it, and we all know that Reb Avram will sorely be missed every single day. But now, Reb Avram is at peace, without pain, in the company of departed loved ones, especially his parents, his siblings, and the ability to understand the way God conducts his world is the ultimate act of loving concern and altruistic, selfless devotion. Tehi Zichro Baruch, may his memory be a blessing and an inspiration. Bila Hamavas Lanetzach Umochad Lo Elohim Dama Mikol Kobanim. May death be swallowed up forever, and may Hashem wipe away tears from every face. Tehei Nafshot Sarur B'Tzor Chaim. May his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life, and let us say, Amen. Because today is it's called Isru Chag, the day after Shavuot, it is customary not to make the traditional El Molei Rachamim, the memorial prayer. But in its place, I have another prayer in memory of Abe. Michtam LeDavid, guard me, God, for in you I have taken refuge. You have said to the Lord, you are my Lord, I have no good beyond you. As for the holy ones who are in the earth and the mighty in whom is all my desire, their sorrows will multiply. Those that run to other gods, their blood libations will I not pour out, nor take their names upon my lips. The Lord is my allotted portion and my share. You sustain my faith. Portions have fallen to me in pleasant places. Loving indeed is my estate. I will bless the Lord who has given me counsel. My conscience admonishes me at night. I have set the Lord always before me, because God is at my right hand. I shall not falter. Therefore my heart rejoices and my entire body exults. Also my body will rest secure, for you will not abandon me to the grave, nor will you let your devout ones at destruction. You will make known to me the path of life. In your presence and fullness of joy, there is delight. In your right hand for eternity. Todieni orach chaim sovas machosas panecha ni'imos b'mincha netzach. May the soul of Avram Yoshua Heschel ben Shmuel v'chayav Sarah be bound up in the eternal bounds of life, and may his memory continue to influence us and to inspire us to only do good for ourselves and for the Jewish people, for the entire world, and let us say, Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the private family interment service will continue at Shalom Cemetery For those of you who will be driving in the funeral procession, please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker placed on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. For additional measures of safety, we will be providing a car in the back of the procession to hopefully keep other cars from entering the procession. Please use your horn liberally as you're going through the intersections, and please do not speak on your cellular phone while driving to the cemetery. But please keep in mind, it's a private family interment, so only those of you who are planning on going, please go. The Shiva will be at the Rosenblum residence at 9201 North Drake in Evanston. There'll be traditional Shiva, 6:30 to 9, no Shiva on Friday or Saturday. Memorial contributions in his memory to the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center, or to his synagogue, the Skokie Valley Agudath Jacob Synagogue. For those of you who are online, first of all, many people are watching the service. The family appreciates your attending. All that information is on the website at the funeral home, and for all of you who are physically here, all the information about the donations and the Shiva is on the service folder. At this time, I invite everyone to please rise and stand in place as we escort the Rosenblum family from this room. We're going to get them to their cars and on the way to the procession. For those of you who are going, that were part of that immediate, the kahal, please go to your cars to get ready for the procession. And for those of you who are not going, just please try to exit a different way so we can get the procession started safely. Thank you.